when I was doing X Factor at the age of 27, for me, I'd been out in the real world as an adult for like 9 years. I'd had some experience, but I was so naive. And if I look back now at being the age I am now,
Danyl Johnson, welcome to the show.
I mean, that's like my whole name as well. Actually, it's not really my whole name because I have a middle name as well, which weirdly enough had a typo when I was born. It had three A's in. I don't know if you can guess what my name would be with three A's in, but I'll just give it to you. It was
Aaron.
Aaron. Yeah, there we go. The laziest baby name in the baby book. There we go. That's a good start. That's a good start.
So, you've managed to maintain some public relevancy ever since your time in the X Factor. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think there's probably like a like diversing what the things I'm doing. So I didn't just stay with singing. I, did a little bit of acting. I was on an episode of Benidorm. People keep on coming up to me because apparently it's on Netflix. So everyone keeps on saying, "Oh, wait a minute, were you in Benidorm?" I was like, "Yeah." I mean, it was a long time ago, but it's an amazing experience. And then I got this lovely job at the Postcode Lottery, and I've just been knocking on people's doors and ringing people's doorbells and making people's day. And I still do that even to this day, which I absolutely love.
What has it been about that transition from the X Factor to acting and being an ambassador for the Postcode Lottery that's made it easy for you? I want to say so. How do I want to word this? It's more to me when I was researching you. It was more of a natural transition from you to break away from singing to go and do something else.
I think it's a thing that everyone does. Like, especially in our year, if you look at the people who were in our year, so we had Stacey Solomon. She's decided not to do any singing. She's gone and done an incredible career. And she's diversified a lot. She went on with Celebrity back in the day, and that moved her into different circles. And then she was on Loose Women, and now she's on the BBC, and she's winning awards and stuff like that, which is incredible. I was super proud of her. And then Ollie Murs, obviously, he went to go and be like a big international pop star, and he was incredible. And then he went to go and be a judge on The Voice and stuff like that. So there is an element of everyone diversifying the things they're doing because that's the only way to not stay relevant. It's the only way to stay working.
Stay working.
Yes, because if you stop, no one calls.
That's true. I remember something Jordan Peterson said about one of his clients. He had one where they kept getting offers, but because they kept turning them down, people stopped. It's kind of like the same, not the same, same model essentially. It's like same, don't want to say philosophy, but you know where I'm going with this. It's the same idea of you stop and then just it all stops altogether.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same with anything. If you, the only way that you can get your ideas and thoughts and dreams working is to carry on. And one of my favorite sayings is you need to work hard when no one is watching. So when they are watching, you've already worked hard. So if they say, "Oh, by the way, I love this podcast. It was really, really good. I enjoyed it. How many episodes have you got now?" If you've been working hard quietly, you'd be like, "I've got 50, I've got 100, I've got 2,000, whatever the number is." And they were like, "Really? Wow, I didn't even know you even had one." You're like, "Yeah, you can go back and look at that. We've got a new one out next week." Instead of just having one great podcast and they go, "Cool, when's the next one out?" You're like, "Next week." And then next week's person cancels and isn't as good and doesn't have the same traction. You just have to carry on burning it out. Like, if you look at all the best brands in the entire world, none of them are overnight. All of them are like around 50 to 100 to 200 years in the working. We should never be doing stuff for us. We should be always doing stuff for the rest of our family and the next thing and who we're going to hand it off. And everyone thinks it's going to happen straight away. It's going to happen in 5 years and 10 years. And to be honest, if you want to be successful, I think it takes a lifetime.
Yeah, I remember. How many did Painters of Picasso do? I forget the exact number. I think, yeah, that's kind of my point. He made so many, and we all know who he is. I think Vincent van Gogh, he made, oh, was it 60,000? I want to say.
Yeah.
Point is, he made a lot, yeah.
And he's probably more known now than he's ever known. You know what I mean? He's ever been known. So I think that's the thing that everyone thinks success or notoriety is the main thing, but those things normally come when we're not here to see it.
Is that what before your time in the X Factor, is that what you were doing behind the scenes where you were a dance and, is it drama teacher, where you were just doing a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
hidden. Okay. So what gave you the confidence to go on the show back off just doing a lot of back end work in private?
I mean, I had worked in the music industry ish to the edges. So I'd been in a couple of bands, I'd been in a couple of duos, I was writing music, we were playing different places. But it's all to the side. None of it was making money, none of it was giving us an income or a living. It was just a side project. And that's what most things should ever be. I think when you're growing up and figuring out who you are and what you want to do, everything that you think is going to be successful that is about you should be a side project. And if it kicks off, great. You need to have other stuff that you can do as well that gives you money. That's if you can, be personable and you work in the shop and you work your way up, or you work really really hard an office and stuff away and work your way up, or you get to a point of money that you're like, I can sustain my life, I can go on holiday, I can pay the bills, I can see some friends for a couple of drinks. And then if your side hustle starts working, great. Let it work for 5 years, let you pay your tax bill for 5 years, and we'll see what happens then.
Never considered that because the advice has always been make sure it makes as much as your current income before you quit. I've never heard it where it's give it 5 years and let's see where it goes.
Yeah. I think you should be working. Like, if you think you work hard, I guarantee you're not. I guarantee that you can probably work about 50% harder than you're working now. But everyone says prioritizes other things. They prioritize friends, family, birthdays, weddings, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's completely fine to prioritize it. The people who are super successful don't do any of this. You can't be the best dad and the best mum if you want to literally focus on your career and your work to the highest percentage. It's so hard. It's such a percentage that we have to try and have. There's only 100% we can give. So if you give 75% to work, you've only got 25% to give to everyone else. But it's depending what you want. It's depending if you want success, or depending if you want a lifestyle balance with work, then you won't be successful. It's really tough. That's why there's so few people that are successful consistently.
That's something I've had to learn recently because we were talking about was my job before this, and that's something I've had to start learning is starting to cut back with work so I can put more time into this because I unintentionally started putting a lot more mental effort and focus into my job and not the podcast. And I think, yeah, it can happen. I think with that, you just accidentally fall into it.
It's priorities. That's all you have to do. You have to think priorities. If you're thinking, I would love to buy a house, and you don't have a house, right? And you're like, cool, I'd really like to work really hard to be able to buy a house, and that's completely fine. But then you've got to run that house. So you buy it, and then you've got to put stuff in that house, right? And then you've got to make sure that it continually, like, you've got electric bills, you've got gas bills, you've got water bills, all this sort of stuff, council tax, all this stuff that happening. When you start doing that, I don't think that you can work on your business as well, because you're figuring about too many other different things. I think the younger that you can figure it out of what you want to do with literally no one depending on you, or you're depending on anyone else, you are just either at home or you're staying on your friend's couch. That's how you hear about a lot of successful people. They're staying on their mate's couch. They're not paying bills. You know what I mean? They're not trying to make a life for themselves. They are like working beyond harder than you could ever imagine on their one thing, and then that will work. Fingers crossed. It won't work for like multiple years, but that will work in about 7 to 10 years. And then you can start thinking, right, cool, I can rent somewhere. That's the problem. We just get so stuck in our way and our worlds and our things. And I'm completely there as well. I own a house, I have a dog, I have a car, I pay the bills and stuff like that. And then people are like, how come you're not really like pushing yourself as that? Because I got comfortable in the so-called dream of happiness, of, you know, buy a place, get a dog, get married, have kids, die. You know what I mean? It's tough. Well, and I didn't say work in there. I didn't say entrepreneur in there. Like, that's the thing that most people are told. No one is told to be an entrepreneur at school. No one is.
Nope. It's kind of ironic how that's the one thing that, well, no, maybe that's by design, where it's the one thing that would give you the most freedom, but then, of course, I guess push it aside. I think with what you're saying about the priorities thing, they tend to come up. I mean, in my case, I live on my own, and so that does inevitably have a knock-on effect on everything I do. But then there's trade-offs. There's trade-offs. So one of the trade-offs is, well, okay, I can't 100% put all my time into this, and then I've got some other stuff on the side, so that inevitably takes some mental space up. For me, what would you recommend people do to knock down the priorities to get the things they want, or maybe in a similar situation to me where they've got too much going on, and how can they start ticking it off, some of the stuff off, so that they can free up some more space?
I think, and this is not what I'm doing. This is an idea and space. When I look at people who are successful, and I look at any one of my friends who's successful, none of them are married, right? They might own their house because their stock went well in the company that they worked in, but they just literally stayed in the same thing, and they just got their head down, didn't complain, and they just worked. And I think the problem is everyone wants to have their cake and eat it, and I think it's impossible. And if you think you're doing too much, you're doing too much. So you have to cut 90% down. And it's the hardest thing. Like, if you want to be successful, you have to ask yourself, do I want to be successful? Do I want to do this? And if I do, what am I going to have to sacrifice? And that's the biggest word. You have to sacrifice more. When I first started doing this, and I had like so many shows, and like, money was getting paid to me really stupidly to do these shows for not a very big amount of time. And I did every show. I didn't go to my friends' birthday parties. I didn't go to my friends' weddings. I didn't do anything. I rented my house. I had a housemate. You know what I mean? Actually, no, I rented for 2 years, and I had a housemate. And I was like, look, I'm just going to get this sorted, get this done. I mean, in the end, I should have just bought Bitcoin and it would have been fine. But it's hindsight is a great thing. But also, when people go on about like might be missing out on like Bitcoins and stuff like that, what you need to ask yourself is, what is going to be hot in 7 to 10 years that isn't right now, and then try and work with 5 or 10 of those really small. You know what I mean? Because how much was Bitcoin in 2011? £1, £2, and now it's 80 grand. It's 80 grand. So in the space of like 15 years, the thing that was nothing that everyone would laugh about, everyone wishes they had. And so you need to keep your fingers on the pulse of the things that are going on. When you think you're not doing something great, this podcast world is great, and I love it, and I love talking to people, and it's incredible. But at the same time, it's a bit like the music industry now. Are too many people doing it? How do I cut through? How do I be the next thing? What is the next thing? What happens after podcast? Is there something else that is going to explode next? They've tried so many different things, and you have to be kind of on top of all of those things, but no one knows. But if you have your fingers in a couple of pies and you're kind of keeping things, and yet again, you still have to spread bet. You don't know what's going to work, but it only takes one thing to work to make you self-sufficient, and then you can kind of kick on. And I think for you, for myself, is trying to prioritize what, can I swear on this?
Yeah.
What the fuck you want? That's what you have to ask yourself. What the fuck do I want? If you knew you were going to die in 5 years' time, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can only take your family on holiday so many times in that 5 years. So, okay, that's done. What are you going to do? And that's what you have to try and think. You're like, if this is finite, if I have a small amount of time, because theoretically speaking, we only have like 85 years. That's the average age of 82 years for men. Or maybe 79. It's going down a bit. But like, we don't have that much time. So what if you knew when you were going to die, trust me, you'd be working harder now. Unless it's tomorrow, and then who cares?
I suppose.
Am I making you think? I feel like I'm really like
throwing
this on you, and I felt like you thought I was going to just talk about X Factor and being on TV and knocking on people's doors, which is great, and we can do that. But it's so, if you already said Jordan Peterson and stuff like that. Like, these people have some crazy thought-provoking things to say that are not even true or false. They're not even for you. You can just take little tidbits. There's something in there you can just take away. And, you know, those sort of people, even though they can be seen as protagonists, it who isn't a protagonist in history?
Well, you know what? You know the saying, everyone's a hero in their own story.
And a villain.
And a villain. What do you mean by
Yeah,
that?
yeah. You're a villain in someone's story. You were horrible to someone at school or nursery or work or whatever. Like, someone didn't like you. So, you know, not just you personally. I mean the raw you.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I suppose, when it comes, I think with me, the advantage I have is that I figured out what I wanted quite early on because I'm only 25, and for a lot of people that's quite young. For me, that's quite old. But yeah, yeah, I know. But I think it makes life easier for me knowing what I want now because then I've had it where personally I've gone most of my life not knowing what I want, and I don't know about you, but when you're like that, you're kind of in this weird state of limbo. You know
You're
what I
meant
mean?
to
You
be.
just know you are, not you're meant to
You
be.
No, but you're meant to be in limbo, because you've theoretically, if you say being an adult is 18, you've been an adult for 7 years. That's nothing.
Doesn't feel like nothing.
In the whole scheme of life, 7 years is nothing. So if you live to 85, 7 years is nothing.
Key words is if though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, apparently in our generation, we should live to past 100. So, you know, we've got to make sure we brush our teeth. I mean, you know, we only get 2 sets, and we literally ruin our teeth in the first, like when we were children. They already start falling out by the time we're 8. And then we've got to get new ones, and they have to last the rest of time. Unless you're from Essex, and then you can just get new ones.
Well enough, I am from Essex.
There we go.
During your entire career, like you said, um, with your priorities, because you've obviously changed what you've done over the years. What have been your personal priorities then? Because you said you got comfortable, you got a house, dog, this, that, and the other. How have your priorities changed?
You know, I don't know. I'm very lucky. I've been able to work this whole time. I've never been out of a job, ever, in my entire life. You know, so as soon as I could work from the age of 15, 16, I've always worked and had multiple jobs multiple times in my life. And I've always done stuff. I've always hustled. I've always, and it's, that's what you just have to do. You have to be less critical on yourself. You have to be less stressed about if it going well or all that stuff. Like, who cares? Like, I guarantee that no one knows what their great granddad did, but he was all right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I guarantee that he didn't care what he did. He just had to make sure that there was food, it was warm, and everyone was relatively healthy, and they could go to Cornwall once a year or whatever. And so I think for myself, one of the weirdest things is at the age of 27, which is still 2 years away from you, when I did X Factor, right? Which is 16 years ago. So let's do the maths on that, right? So then my dog wants to come and say hello. Hello, yeah.
Hello.
And so I should call Lois. And so
Hello.
when I was doing X Factor at the age of 27, for me, I'd been out in the real world as an adult for like 9 years. I'd had some experience, but I was so naive. And if I look back now at being the age I am now, which is like 42, right? At the same time, 27-year-old, I was a baby. I was an absolute baby. I knew nothing. And when I look back when I'm 75, I'm going to look back at 42 and I'll be like, God, I knew nothing. And this is the thing, we're always looking for perfection and getting things right. And the only way that I've ever learned is by getting things wrong. I get things wrong every day. And hopefully I just remember how to try and work it out and not do anything stupid again. And but I still do every single day. Every day. There's always stuff. Because that's how we learn. And when we think we're having original ideas and thoughts and feelings and stuff, you're not. None of us are actually special. You know what I mean? You can think you're special, that's fine. But we're all the same. Every one of us is completely the same. And it's up to us how much we want to try and drive ourselves. But at the same time, most people don't. And then a lot of people do. And then there's people who sit in the middle. And that literally is society. And I think that with people now putting their pressure on to be successful in life, I think that's a lot of pressure. But I can say that because in my mind, I've only ever tried to impress like my younger self. And if they got to see what I've experienced, where I've gone, where I've been, where I live, what I do, they'd be like, wow, you did that? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, cool. What are you going to do next? Let's see. They didn't ask me for questions like, what am I going to do next in my mind? Like, and I have to tell them. They're like, what are you going to do next? Let's see. And we'll see. And we'll see.
That's kind of the nice parts about life. You never know what's around the corner, but I find that's kind of one of the more daunting. It's like a double-edged sword there. It's nice because you don't know what's going to happen, but it's also daunting because you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know what that thing's going to happen is.
You're overthinking, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's cool. Like when you think this world is against you, you have to remember one thing, that it was never for you. You were just in it. That's it. It was never for you. So none of the stuff is against you. When people are mean to you, or stuff happens, or the saddest stuff happens, or the greatest stuff happens, cool. That was nothing. It was nothing to do with you. You might have been in the right place, right time, but not really. You're just in it. And it's just going around you and it's happening and blah, blah, blah. And as you don't think anyone is special when you're sat on a tube, they think the same thing about you. Just try and not worry as much. Try and be as content as much as you can. And I don't think you have to be happy all the time. I think that stresses people out. But as you can remember being happy, or you can remember being sad, it just flips around all the time. And if over the course of a life, I like this analogy, which is like, have you ever had a heart monitor on? Have you ever seen a heart monitor on, like on a TV show?
Yes, I have. I know what you're on about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you draw that heart monitor, what you can see with your finger right now, how would it look? So you got your finger there. How would it look? Yeah, cool, cool, cool. And what is that? What are you doing with your finger?
I know where this is going because I know the metaphor behind one of your podcasts logo lives up and down. So that's what you drew. That. Yeah,
Yeah,
I did see that.
yeah. And that came from that moment, because my friend was sort of saying, and over the course of a life, that's what it is. And if you ever see a straight line of consistency, that's death. That's the only consistency we have. So you need the ups, you need the downs, you need the ups, you need the downs, and that's how you know you're alive. And that's what your heart is doing every single second, or second and a half.
Yeah, I've come to terms recently where if you're going through a bad period, it's not going to last. If you're going through an okay period, that's not going to last. But if you're going through a good period, that's also not going to last.
Well, just embrace, just remember it.
Yeah,
That's what
no,
you have to do. You have to just remember it, because people don't remember the good stuff. They only remember bad stuff.
yeah, because I would say at work we're going through what some of the more experienced members of staff would consider a good period, and I've been saying the entire time because I don't know what a bad period is at my job. This isn't going to last. If there's one thing I know, it's not going to last, and just enjoy it while it
Well,
lasts.
but why would you say that? Do you know, if you're skiing down a hill and you start saying to your brain, "Don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree," you're gonna hit a tree, right? Because you're telling yourself. But if you says, "I'm not gonna hit I'm like not even meant to the trees, but like, oh my god, this looks amazing. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this long enough. I know how to get out of situations if they go wrong. But I'm literally fine. I'm confident in myself, and I'll be fine." Then you probably will just get down that hill completely fine. But if you put in this element of not even negativity, of trying to preempt what inevitably is going to happen, you are not enjoying. Now, so just don't worry about it. If you ask most old people if there's anything that you could tell yourself, if you can go back, what would you say? And they all say, I would just worry less. I would watch the news less, and I'd worry less. Stop having opinions about stuff that doesn't concern you and stuff like that. Like, anyway, Karen, sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask, do you think that's a bit of hindsight talking when you go to like people of the older generation, they say, "I wish I was less," because hindsight is inevitably you looking back, knowing what has happened, not what's going to happen, or that unknown bit.
If you ask yourself, do you do things better because you worry, or do you do things better when you don't worry? What would you say?
I personally say worry because I'm a lot more proactive.
You think by worrying about getting things wrong or things going badly makes you do things better.
I said more proactive. I never said do things better. I would. Okay. To answer your actual question, I would say I'm more proactive when I'm worried, but I do better work when I'm a lot more calmer.
Yes. And that's, and you will be better with your friends, your family, your partner, your work, if you can kind of let the stuff go that you have no control on, and you just work on the stuff that you do have control on. The stuff you have no control on doesn't make it. You can't do anything about it. You can't. It's horrendous. And one things that we do, especially in the Western world, we have this we have a very, very strange relationship with death. Like a really strange relationship with death. I don't know if you've been to a funeral in your life or anything like that, but I tell you, if you go to a funeral in a lot of other different countries in the East, in South America and stuff like that, it's always celebrated. We don't celebrate unless we're drinking until afterwards. You know what I mean? And I think this the whole thing of it's a celebration of the life that had been lived. And I think a lot of the times, we see. I'm not saying don't cry if people die, but we also knew it was inevitable. And if you say, I could never think about my nan dying, I could never think about my granddad dying, I could never think about, well, you're going to be absolutely destroyed because it is going to happen. Hopefully, it happens before you die because it has to go in order. Great great parents, grandparents, your parents, you, your kids, their kids. You know what I mean? If it goes out of order, it's absolutely horrendous and terrible. But if you went, hey, my nan is not going to be around forever, maybe I need to just go around there a couple of times more. Maybe I should listen to her stories. Maybe I'll record it. Maybe I'll do a podcast. Maybe I'll journal it. Maybe I'll ask what those things are on the sideboard. Like why you've got them for so long. Why are they really important to you? And don't just be like, I just couldn't imagine them dying. Go and find out about them. Live, get their stories, and then tell them to the next generation. They say you die twice. They say you die when you die, and you die when the last person remembers you. Well, then make sure that people remember you.
So how would you make if you had to make people remember you? How would you do it?
I think you have to invest into the people around you, your friends and your family, and the ones that are coming through. Make an effort with either your kids or your nephews and nieces or your cousins and stuff like that. Make an effort. Like, be in their life. Know your friends' kids. Know when their birthday is. Be kind. Let them talk. Let them make mistakes as well. Don't guide them. Just listen. I think there was a mum and she says when the kids say anything and she wants to give advice, she just goes, mm-hmm. Because they didn't ask for advice. This is a lot of another thing that people do. We all give advice and no one asked. It's very rare when you go, hey, buddy, can I get your advice on something? That sounds work. That doesn't sound like your friend. And it is very rare. And I've got some of my closest friends. They will very rarely call up for advice, but when they do, I was like, oh, you need it. I have to shut my mouth because I'm such a talker, as you know. I have to shut my mouth to try and give them advice when they don't want it because they never asked. And I think that's the one thing, especially it's a bit like giving us directions. We listen to a direction sort of situation when we have to go somewhere and we don't listen. And when people give us advice that we didn't ask for, we also don't listen.
You can also there's a term called, I read in a book called Unscripted by MJ Marco called ask calls, where people ask, but they just ask and they don't follow up on the advice you give them. So someone could come to me and say, yeah, so someone, odd example, just for the sake of arguments, we'll run with this. Someone could say, hey, Cayde, what kind of cheese should I get? And I say red Leicester. And they don't even go and get like any cheese or like the red Leicester, they just go and ask the next person, the next person. You do get people like that.
Yeah, but you didn't give them the answer they wanted. That's why. That was it. They can ask you. They can ask your opinion. That's completely fine. You didn't. You didn't give them the answer they wanted, so they went to someone else. And you see it all the time. People already have it in their head. They could already be like, oh, "I don't really know what red Leicester is," or "I had it before, I didn't like it," or "I know my wife really doesn't like that sort of cheese, so she's more of a Wensleydale person." It's so difficult. But yet again, remember, it never was personal. There's nothing to do with you. It's to do with them. Just let it go.
Yeah, I had it recently where someone asked me something and I had to say no, but they didn't like that answer, so they went and asked everyone else. Thankfully, we all said no. But I know what you mean. It's the
Because when people ask for advice, I'm going to tell you, I can even tell in this conversation and every conversation I ever have, when people actually do ask for your advice, they already know what they're going to do. Like, you've had friends in your life that they could easily ask you, like, "Do you like my new girlfriend or boyfriend?" You can tell them what you think. It makes no difference. It makes no difference. They're not going to go, if you go, "Do you know what? They're absolutely amazing." Yeah, great. They're like, "Okay, cool." And then they might be like, "Are they amazing?" Or you'll be like, "Yeah, I don't really think they're for you. And to be honest, like, I think you probably can do better." And they're like, "How fucking rude are you?" You know, you can't answer the question. You can't answer the question because they don't have an answer. They don't know what they want. And that's the problem when we do ask for advice. It's really difficult to know. When someone says, "What cheese should I buy?" You said what cheese you like. You didn't say what cheese. Oh, what sort of cheese? Well, what you should have asked them was that. Oh, what sort of cheeses are you into?
ah.
It's I my friend's kid was having a bit of a tough time, right? And this kid's an amazing kid. He's raised so much money for charity. He's one of the winners at Pride of Reading. He's come and done the red carpet with us. He's interviewed guests on the red carpet, and he's a really, really good kid. And he was having a bit of a tough time at school. And his mum said, "Do you know what? He would love if you took him out for lunch." I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. He could talk football to the end of the earth, right? He's a nice kid." And I said, "Yeah, I'll take him out for lunch." I've known him for like 4 or 5 years. We've done a couple of challenges together. We've like been in the gym like more than 5 hours each time because he cycled to Paris in the end, and I was doing his training with him. So, and at that time he was like 12. So, and like he's next level. He said he wants to be prime minister. I don't know if he wants to do that anymore. Anyway, so his mum said, like, "Can you take him out for lunch?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." So I saw him and I said, and I saw this on Instagram. It was very clever. And they said, well, I said to this kid, I said, "Guess where we're going for lunch?" He said, "Where?" I said, "It's your favorite." He's just like, "Nando's?" I went, "Yep."
Ah. I see what you did
I
there.
didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to ask any question. I literally, I just said, "Guess where?" And he told me. He told me the answer. I literally just said, "Guess where?" And I said, "It's your favorite." And I didn't. I just pulled it out. I didn't know how. "Oh, do you want to go here, or would you fancy here, or do you want to go here?" Because I'm going to tell you, kids, partners, brothers and sisters, parents, if you ask them those questions about where you want to go, what do you want to watch on Netflix, no one bloody knows. So if you can kind of pull out their idea of what they want to do out of them, it just works a bit better.
Also, with the working a bit better, they're going to be a lot more up for it because they're the ones like with the Nando's thing. I thought it was clever because you got him to answer the question, but then he's more up
Yeah,
for it
I,
because
I don't know where
he's
he
the
wants
one
to
that I
go.
will go Nando's. Oh, we'll go Nando's
Yeah,
then.
I didn't want to go Nando's, but he wanted to go Nando's, and it was for him. So you know what I mean. If it was for me, I'd be like, well, somewhere a bit nicer. But nothing against Nando's, by the way. I just ate a lot of it when I was on X Factor because that's what they fed us. Thank you very much. But yes, I can't eat it that much anymore. So
But I've never actually had a Nando's, I must say.
I mean, you have to go at least once, just for the experience.
Could probably get a takeaway these days.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I don't know whether I consider that a good thing or a bad thing because it's definitely more convenient, but at the same time, you lose that human connection. It's kind of the same problem we have in supermarkets with self-serve checkouts. Yes, they're very convenient because you don't have to deal with the person with a rude cashier, or say there's a bit of a hiccup with the till and sorry, we don't have 5p change. Here's, or maybe you do have to deal with that, but you get my point. It's a lot more seamless, but at the same time, you kind of you know there's also concern. It came about because of COVID, but where people aren't so socially able anymore. So what I mean is because we're a lot more on computers, like yeah, we're talking like socially over the internet, but it could be we're not in the same room. And because we're not in the same room, why am I going with this? Basically, because we've adopted tech so much and we're so connected online, we've lost that human connection to some degree. So we're not
I don't.
as go on.
I would say that human beings, we look at worst case scenario a lot. And yes, we are doing this. But theoretically speaking, you wouldn't be able to start your podcast if you had to do everything in house in the same room with load of people. You wouldn't be able to get the same caliber of guests. They might not live near you, all that sort of stuff. So you wouldn't be able to start your business, right? But at the same time, I coached football for like 8, 9 years, and there were kids outside playing football all the time. There are interactions in real life. And yes, when I go to Co-op, which is my local supermarket, if I'm using this self-service till, because I don't need to use the other till, I don't need to get anything from behind the counter. I don't have to do anything like that. I don't need to get a national lottery ticket or anything. You know, I I still say when I leave, thank you very much, because they're still stocking all the shelves. They're still keeping the shop open. They're still helping out if you need a bag or whatever like that, you know. So I think it's down to us. And it's one of those weird things, my friends laugh at me, that if I ask the lady who shouldn't be said in my own house, so if I ask like Siri or Alexa to do something in my house, when they do it, I always say thank you. And it's such a weird thing because people are like, well, why do you do that? It's just like to not get out of the habit of not saying thank you in real life. It's something that was still done, you know. And I think that we can get a little too worried about the smaller things. But in day to day, I have a dog. I say hello to everyone. I live in a village. I say hello to everyone. And even if they don't say hello to me, I do not take it personal. I just go, okay, maybe it's just not their day, or maybe they just get a bit worried to say hello back, or you know, they don't have a dog, so they feel strange or whatever. You know, it always starts with you, and don't worry about what other people are doing. Just be the best version of yourself, and that's it. Don't worry. Don't expect it from other people. You just be the best version.
And how do people become the best versions of themselves and define what that best version of themselves are? Because I can't help but think that term has become a bit cliche because everyone says be the best version of you. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that sound defines, but what does that look like for me? And that's clearly going to be different for say you and anyone else.
Of course, because I didn't say be the best version of me. I said be the best version of yourself. Like you know what it is. You know to be polite. You know to be friendly. You know not to bitch about people behind their back. You know to do a little bit more work than you're asked to do. You know to make an effort to buy a Christmas card for someone who's got you one every single year, right? Which we don't do. You know to remember someone's birthday. You know to be on time. You know those things to do. It's down to you if you want to do them. That's if you don't do them, then you're not the best version of yourself. If you try and do those things without being stressed about it, then you're on your way to being the best version of yourself. Without it making it in, it's like a bit of a religious thing, isn't it? Like someone is watching. You know, I'm not religious, but I'm not religious. I just think like, well, imagine someone was always watching. Would you make that decision if people were watching? No, you wouldn't. So don't do it.
Yeah, some people would though. That's the sad part.
No, 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 no. But you've gone to worst case scenario. I'm talking about majority of people. Never lead a conversation with worst case scenario or best case scenario. With most consistent majority scenario is the best way to go, because that's what most route that people take.
Why is that?
Because it is probably the least resistant. I think when people are, I've always said if you saw two lines, the easy route or the hard route, which one do you reckon has a bigger line?
The easy route.
And why does it have the bigger line?
Because there's a path of least resistance.
Because it's easy. But if you took the hard route, it would take you exactly the same amount of time.
Would it?
You just got what you wanted. Yeah, because the hard line would be still very hard. It's very difficult. And the easy line, it's easy, but you're in the line for literally eternity. Because if everyone is in that line, you're not going to get through. The hard one is just like, oh crap. Like if you knew that the easy line, right, you don't have to do any work and it's going to be easy rate, but it's going to take you 85 years, or you can do the hard line, it's going to take you 35 years. So people would still choose the easy line.
Yeah. I mean, when you said that, my default was the hard route because yeah, it's hard, but you get there. Well, okay, same
You
amount
get
of
there quicker because
time.
less people are in it.
Yes, let's
Nearly
be
no one's in it.
honest. Or you might occasionally bump into one or two people, but that's going to be a rarity compared to the easy line. You're just going to be surrounded in a crowd.
The easy line would be full of billions of people. And I'm not saying, of course, I would choose the easy line as well. I'm not choosing the hard line.
No, I'm choosing the hard.
You're actually choosing the hard.
Yeah, I was. I'm
See,
a bit. Oh,
I would
go
choose
on.
easy.
Okay.
No, I would choose easy, because I think in that situation, I think most people don't want to have a hard life, even if the reward is massive. I tell you that it's a bit like everyone wants to be famous until they're famous,
Yeah. Who's that guy who
and then you don't want to
said?
be famous.
Yeah, who was it who said? It's it was a entrepreneur who said. Oh, I can't forget how to say his name. There was a entrepreneur who said, "Yeah, if you want to be rich and famous, get rich first, then can debate whether getting famous." Because yeah,
Yep. Yeah. If your money is tied to you being liked, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. It's happening now with a person I know. I'm not even going to overly mention names. It's in the paper right now, and they are having a really, really, really hard time. And they had money, and I don't know how much money they had, right? But they went and did something else, and they got more famous, and I think it might have ruined them.
yeah, that's a common thing with people my age, where if you give them a bunch of fame and money early on,
You'll be dead.
yeah, basically, because you'll never reclaim that. The way I like to look at it is something how Gary V is he abbreviates it from Gary Vaynerchuk. He says it's like when it comes to fame, you're better playing the long. Well, I'm paraphrasing this, but when it comes to fame, you're better off just playing the long game because you're gonna have periods when no one knows you. You're gonna have periods where you're super famous. You're gonna have periods where people know you, but you're not as big as you were, but you're not as dead as you.
That happened with Elvis Presley. People said he was dead and buried until he redid himself and then did Vegas and did the TV show. You can see it in the new film and stuff like that. It happens with all of them. It happened with Judy Garland. It happened with Lauren Hardy. It happened with David Bowie. It happened with Cher. It happened with Whitney Houston. It happened like the problem is it's happening with Britney Spears, who's like one of the biggest. I mean, slightly outdated, but like one of the biggest pop stars there has ever been, as in a female of my generation, right? And now we look at her and we're like, what the hell's wrong with you? What's wrong? What's happened? What went so badly wrong? And I'm gonna tell you, if she could have seen what would have happened in the end, she wouldn't have wanted any of that. She would have traded it all in.
We're seeing it lately with Linkin Park because they brought out their new album a couple months ago. I want to say
Yeah.
massive in the early 2000. I want to say early 2000s.
Yep.
Basically dead for a decade.
No pun intended.
Well, with all due respect as well. And they're back with a new singer. They got a new album and everyone's talking about them again. So yeah.
You can bring yourself back, right? But it will never be to what it was.
I think with me, I'd be more content with that because say I get really really famous, then I die off, and I get back to like maybe a third of what I had. I'll be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but in that time you have to make sure you keep your powder dry. You're gonna make sure you have good people around you. You're gonna make sure you're being on your best behavior. You cannot freak out in any capacity. You cannot be rude when you're in your car. You cannot, like, everyone's waiting for you. Everyone's waiting for those moments. Everyone's waiting to take a picture. Everyone has one of these. Everyone. It's not like being famous back in the day. This is a new thing. There was a full video of what happened to Liam Payne. It's on the internet. You can see it. It's horrendous. It's horrendous because everything's filmed. Yeah, I'll leave you to look into that yourself.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I remember I went down to my family's for Christmas one year, and we're watching a cop show with. Oh, it's gonna Nathan Fillion or some. I think it was him, but no, I don't have my phone exactly on me. But they had it where the cops were doing the arrest, and everyone had their phones out filming it, and I thought that's quite telling of the times. And there was I think it was a BBC show. I didn't catch the name, but it was set in modern day. Three guys basically rob I want to say a bank truck or something, and then someone like just a bypasser high up in the window was filming and put it on social media, and then you cut to a scene with the guy like the boss in the prison, and he said snitches, the world's full of grasses, and it's just because they had yeah. And you're saying about the fame thing, didn't that happen with Justin Bieber, where everyone, because you're so big at one point, where everyone was trying to find every little scrutin, or trying to scrutinize him for every little thing at one point? I think I drove him insane.
Well, not only that, there'll be people antagonized him as well, and they'll talk about his relationship, or they'll talk about his family, or they talk, and then he was like a young teenager, a young 20-year-old, and then they're waiting for him to get really really annoyed, and they take pictures of it, and then you write a piece of stuff on him. I mean, to be honest, Justin has more worries in his life that's going on right now than you know than then. So who knows what's going to happen? That's the problem about that world. That's the problem with any part of the world. As soon as you put your head above the parapet, you have to be ready. Especially we have the phrase tall poppy syndrome. Especially in this country, people don't like you to do well.
No. There's a thing with the UK where per capita of population, we've got the highest amount of millionaire expats. So whilst on paper China has more because they got a got more expats, millionaires, by size of population, it's the UK who has the most who just get up and leave.
Yeah, but I mean, because you're not lauded, you're not looked after, you're not praised for your hard work over a crazy amount of times and your sacrifice. You're sort of seen to be a bit of a cash cow, and you should pay more tax. And I'm just like, well, they are paying tax. When in 2020 they went after the footballers, it was crazy. They already paid tax. Stop thinking about their pay packet. You don't have a clue how much they're getting paid. You might hear that they get paid £200,000 a week, but you have no idea. You don't know what that is. Probably 45% of that, 50% of that is tax, and they've got agent fees. Then they're probably looking after their mother. Then they're probably looking after their parents. They're probably looking after their brother and sister. They're probably looking like, and also their career is, theoretically speaking, is no longer than 10 years in that time bracket of making money. They didn't go after anyone in Formula One. They didn't go after anyone in golf. They didn't go after anyone. Like they went after teenage footballers. It was crazy. That's what they kept on talking about. That they need to give more money to the NHS. Well, they do. They do. You know, and it's crazy. These people who want to become something do become it, and then they're lambasted because they're not grateful, or they go in hiding and they're like, "Hey, I don't want to share my life anymore." You're like, "Well, of course you don't, because if you show you're wearing a nice watch, someone's going to rob you. They're going to burgle your house." I mean, London right now is a joke. It's a scary joke.
Yeah. Well, the worst part is, it's tech with the UK. Technically, it's a poor country attached to the sixth
To
largest
London.
economy. Yeah.
Yeah, London in itself is its own country, you know, and that's the problem. I travel around the world, sorry, the UK, and I'm going to tell you that London don't care about the rest of the country.
Seriously.
No, no, London do not that the people don't, but politics wise in London they don't care about the rest of the country for at all. And I travel across the whole country, and I know that for a simple fact is if I go to a place that I think, oh bloody hell, this place needs a little bit of TLC. How long has it been like this? They'll say it's always been like this. How can it always be like this? That's crazy. It's always been like this. And that's the same. The roughest places that you know that you live around have always been rough, right? Why? Why they're not being helped? It's crazy. And we just other them. We don't want to live there, you know.
Well, no one. Well, everyone's risk averse, so you're not going to go to the riskiest places unless you have to.
No. And your insurance company's not going to help you for it, are they? If you've got a car and you live in the centre of somewhere, you know, you could say that Hackney's been gentrified, and that's fine, but I still don't want to live there. Where do you live?
I don't really want the entire internet to know, but it is. I'll give a bit of a hint. Is
I mean, you could just say a county.
okay. Somerset.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, I live in Berkshire, but I live in Reading. Most people know where I live. I think it's on the internet, so I'll just get over it. It's fine. No one cares. As my friend likes to say, he has a little saying, and it just goes, "Nobody cares," and it's true. You think they do, but you care about no one else apart from the people that you love. That's it. You don't care. So it's true. It's true, and it's fine because as long as people are being cared about by the people that love them, then they don't need you to love them. You know what I mean? They don't need you. I mean, my closest friends, if I ask them why we're friends, they'll say something really horrible, and that's how I know we're friends as boys.
Yeah, sadly, but
No,
Danyl Johnson. Go on.
no, for me is that's the best way of feeling loved. If my friends can take the piss out of me, right, and I've known him for 20 years, I know I'm loved by them because they have the freedom that they know I'm not going to take it personal. When you're nice to someone all the time, you're probably lying to them because you know they can't take it.
Yeah, that's true. Danyl Johnson, everyone. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
I mean, you can just I don't know, Google, go on. Uh, the funny thing is that like everyone knows how to find everyone. It's just on social, isn't it? So just go on Instagram. There's some stuff happening on YouTube later on in the year and stuff like that. So I'm working on, and yeah, I don't really like for you. I don't. You don't need to find me. You can watch some of the stuff I've done. That's great. I don't know if you want to talk to me because I talk a lot. So it's one of those sort of things. But yeah, you can get me on Instagram if you want to. But like, it's just gonna be boring pictures of my dog, to be honest.
Yeah, plus your name spelled quite uniquely as well, so it's not hard to miss. Yeah.
Well, especially to be honest, it runs in the rest of my name because obviously you know about the three A's in my middle name. So having a weird spelt first name, which people think because you know you do TV work that I made that up, but nope, that was from birth. So thanks, parents. I mean, you've got a different name as well. To be honest, though, to be honest.
Oh, I changed mine actually, so that's not on my parents, that's on me.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I can't really blame them.
No, don't. Just fine.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that episode with Danyl Johnson, then you will enjoy my conversation with Brooke Davis, who is the lead singer for the band The Wild Violet.